All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Go Talk with Marcus. We are 25 minutes late because we were having some real bad audio problems. But we're here. We are here with my guy Steezy A Smith, returning to the show for the second time this season to talk all things NFL football. Week 4 has come and gone, which means crazy enough, we're a month through the season. So there's some things we got to talk about. There's some players we got to discuss. And of course, just like last season, week 4 is the beginning of the GOAT Talk Power Ranking. So stay tuned for myself and Steezy giving our top 5 teams in the NFL as it stands today. Stay tuned for all that and so much more next on Go Talk with Marcus.
Give them a shot to do what?
Steezy, my man, how you doing today?
Man, I'm feeling great. Very much relieved after we were able to finally resolve those issues. I was kind of thinking, because I just checked my phone and I saw your text. You were like, yo, we're going to have to take this to IG Live. And so I'm just like, wait, didn't we just come to an agreement? But then I kind of looked at the timestamp and I was like, never mind.
Hey, look, if things go left, we might have to wrap this up on IG Live. But I was dedicated to making sure that we could get on tonight. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to discuss. I want to talk about what I think, at least, is probably the biggest thing maybe to talk about so far, and that is that last season we saw the San Francisco 49ers hop on a plane, fly to the city of brotherly love, and unfortunately they got absolutely beat down by the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC Championship. Now, all things considered, Brock Purdy did go down with a crazy elbow injury early on in that game. But both of these teams, they stand at 4-0 so far through month of the season. So, Steezy, I know you're a Seahawks fan, but is it time for us as fans, as media, as NFL community, is it time for us to embrace the inevitable rematch in this year's NFC Championship between the San Francisco 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles?
You know, I was kind of thinking that was already the case well before the season even started. Like, you know, we're always out here making predictions, and especially during the off season when there's not too much else to do. Like, I mean, I know you and I, we cover other sports. And so it's not just, you know, our life and our media career revolves around the NFL. But for those people that only cover the NFL and in the off season when there's not much else to talk about, they put together a list of rankings. They put together predictions. And I feel like for a majority of the people, you know, in this part of the world, in this industry, in the media, have all predicted a Philadelphia Eagles versus the San Francisco 49ers NFC Championship game. It's not about if that's going to happen, or it's not about whether or not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen and exactly how it's going to come together. And so I still think that you're pretty right on track if you think that's going to be the case. I mean, so if I'm going to shift the conversation to at least a different, what would I call it? A different part of the topic or of the question, if that makes sense. I still think there's a couple of teams to kind of be on the lookout for. I mean, like you mentioned, the Seahawks. I think the Seattle Seahawks have kind of gotten back on the right track. The bye comes at the right time in week 5. And so I still think Seattle could be a force to be reckoned with down the stretch. The Dallas Cowboys, I was on that train. I mean, last time we did talk, I was hyping up the Dallas Cowboys, but I do think that Trevon Diggs injury is very significant. I do think it's one that probably hold them back from accomplishing what they want to accomplish. And so I think the Lions and the Seahawks definitely, I wouldn't be surprised if one of them kind of sneaks their way in, but for the time being, I wouldn't be mad at you if you predicted that the San Francisco 49ers are going to meet the Eagles in the NFC Championship.
I want to make I've held this position since before the game happened the first time around. I want to make this crystal clear. I was of the mindset heading into that game that the 49ers were going to make it to the Super Bowl. I was of the mindset as that game went on that if Brock Purdy didn't get injured on what was a freak accident, the 49ers would have won that football game. And I am of the mindset to this day that if Brock Purdy doesn't get hurt, they win that football game. And I don't know if they'll win the championship. At the very least, they're going to go to the Super Bowl. And look, as Germ says, if my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. But like, here's the deal, right? The 49ers are, and I don't want to spoil things for later on, but the 49ers are one of the best teams in football. I think their record speaks out also, but it's like top to bottom, they're one of the best teams in football. And there's a lot of Eagles fans that are saying, oh, well, man, if you're saying right now that the Eagles aren't clicking, how scary would it be if the Eagles do start clicking? And I get that. But here's the thing, right? When I watch Philadelphia Eagles football so far, are they clear? Like the 49ers and Eagles, bar best two teams in the conference, I don't really think it's even close. Like there's a considerable margin between who the third and fourth best teams are, which I think at this point we can say it's safe to assume are the Lions and the Seahawks, respectively, however you want to match it up. Those would be there. And then of course you have the Cowboys in that tier as well. But the Eagles, to me, have left a lot on the table. And they've struggled in areas this year that they should not be struggling in. And they've struggled in games this year that they should not be struggling. And I get it. It's any given Sunday and anything can happen. And it is the NFL. But the Eagles concern me a bit. But that's the Eagles and the 49ers, I think they were my pick. Well, they were my pick, actually. My pick for the NFC Championship game this year was the Cowboys and the Eagles, because I thought the Niners were going to foolishly start Trey Lance as quarterback. But with Brock Purdy as quarterback, with what he's been able to do under center this season, with what that defense does, with what that offense does, with what Christian McCaffrey does, who I would say, quiet as kept, should be in contention, if not one of the front runners for MVP this year. These two teams are on an inevitable crash course, and I honestly believe that this time around, that game is going to be held in the Bay Area. I don't think we see that rematch in Philly. We're going to see that rematch in the Bay. Of course, we'll see that rematch again in like week 13 or something. But come playoff time, when we see those two teams go at it again, it will be in the Bay, because I do think that the 49ers are going to have the number one seed in the NFC. Sticking in the NFC, though, let's talk about some cats for a second. I'm not a cat person. I'm 100% a dog person. But you got the Lions, who sit at 3-1, and meanwhile, you've got the other three cat teams struggling. The Panthers are 0-4. The Bengals are 1-3. The Jaguars are 2-2. Steezy, are the Lions definitively the best cat team in the NFL at this point?
Hey, I love this question. Honestly, I'm gonna have to say yes. When you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, they were perceived as not only Super Bowl contenders, but as AFC South frontrunners. And even that statement seems to be, I guess, a weird one to say at this point, of the season at this juncture. You look at the Cincinnati Bengals, things are going to get worse before they get better. I know there were reports earlier today that Joe Burrow is feeling as healthy as he has been since he suffered and sustained that calf injury. But you look at T. Higgins, I know he's not expected to miss a lot of time, but these guys are 1-3, and he can't afford to miss any sort of time. And I look at that upcoming matchup, and we're going to talk about it later, but that Week 5 matchup against the Arizona Cardinals, that's not a gimme. I think that's very much a trap game in Arizona, a team that beat the Dallas Cowboys, for crying out loud, just a couple of weeks ago. And so I do think that with some of the issues that have been derailing the Cincinnati Bengals, they could use all the time, all the snaps in the world, for these guys to kind of get back on the same page, for that offense to get back to what it was before. And so given the uncertainty around his health, we don't know if he's going to play Week 5. Joe Burrow says that he's healthy as he can be, but we don't know. That hasn't shown up in his play whatsoever. Jamar Chase is over here ranting, after games, talking about how he's always effing open. And so there's just a lot going on. And then you look at the Panthers. Panthers are just an absolute mess. I don't see them getting a dub this week. I don't see them getting a dub anytime in the near future. And so they've been a mess. They were going to be a mess. Look, I was a fool for thinking that they could be sneaky contenders to win, their division. But my gosh, I completely forgot to look at their lack of weapons. I know Adam Thielen has been doing his thing, but other than that, no other wide receiver seems to be able to gain consistent separation. Bryce Young has already missed a game. Panthers defense littered with injuries. All that being said, yes, the Detroit Lions are far and away the best cat team in the National Football League, and it's not even close.
As much as it pains me to agree here, I kind of have to agree. Yeah, the Lions are the best cat team in football. I want to take this time, though. I want to do what I think I'm good at, which is talk bad about other teams. I want to start with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I very early on, and for those of you guys that follow the podcast, there's only one. There was only up until this offseason one quarterback, one player ever who I referred to by their full name. That was Joseph Lee Burrow. And this offseason, I looked up and I got on this show and I said, hey, man, we might need to start talking about William Trevor Lawrence in a different way. And so far, they're 2-2. And so, as it stands right now, I can't go all in on the triple name. I can't go all in on the full government. I have to stick to Trevor Lawrence because this isn't the Prince. Like this isn't the next big thing that we saw towards the end of last season. And I don't know exactly what the issue is. I don't really understand what the problem is. Now, I would like to think that maybe Calvin Ridley's presence was supposed to be of some help, but it hasn't really been of some help up to this point, although they did do a pretty good job of beating, the Falcons of all teams in London this past week, and they get another game overseas this week as well. They get to stay in London and have some fun. But when you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, to your point, not only were they supposed to be the front runners for the AFC South, they were, and I'm already saying this, they're supposed to be the fourth best team in the conference. When you think about their schedule, when you think about the talent they had on the page, you think about how far they went and how they got to where they got to last season, and they're 2-2, and statistically they're third in the division right now behind both the Colts and the Texans. That's not good. When you stay in the AFC and look at the Cincinnati Bengals, who are deadlocked in fifth, tied with five other teams for the worst division in the conference, with the Jets who don't have a quarterback, with the Patriots who don't have anything, with the Raiders who don't have a quarterback, and with the Broncos who don't have anything but Walmart money. That's not good company that you want to keep. And so again, like I can't sit here in good conscience and refer to Joe Burrow as Joseph Lee Burrow the way I have in the past, because let's be frank, he hasn't been playing like Joseph Lee Burrow so far through 4 weeks of the season. Not all that's his fault, right? I'm on record as saying it was a bad decision for the Cincinnati Bengals to let Joe Burrow start week 1 and not let him get that calf healed up, because as much as Joe Burrow says that he is as healthy as ever, that calf's not going to heal over time. It's not going to get closer. The only thing that's going to help that calf heal is rest. And the Bengals aren't necessarily getting rest anytime soon. And they also need Joe Burrow at this point. Like, not only is Joe Burrow hurt and they're playing bad, but Joe Burrow's hurt, they're playing bad, and they're going all the way to Nashville, Tennessee just to kick a field goal. Like, it's not good. It's not good. And when you come to the NFC and you talk about the Carolina Panthers, Bryce Young has not looked like the number 1 overall pick so far through 4 weeks of the season. Adam Thielen looks old, which, he is old. The run game with Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard has not been what people thought it was going to be, and they are sorely missing one DJ Moore. And so I look at it from that perspective. I have to, not just by default, but also by fact, I have to give the credit to the Detroit Lions to say that they're the best cat team in the league right now, and they're the only cat team that's roaring right now. They're 3-1. They got a big win against my Packers this past Thursday on Thursday Night Football. It was a huge win for them. Take nothing away from what they did. I know we have we have our problems, but they came up and they showed up to play. And their one loss, let's be frank, let's be very honest about what we're talking about. Their one loss is to a good football team in the Seattle Seahawks, but it could have gone either way. Like, they could be 4-0 right now. And so when I look at it from that perspective, when I look at what they've done offensively, when I look at the fact that J-Mo, he's back and he's ready to go after serving that suspension because of gambling, like, the Lions are only going to continue to get better. And now they have sole possession of the NFC North. We're talking about a situation where the Bears, you can forget about it. And I would say the Vikings, too, you can forget about it. They're like, the difference between the Lions and the Packers is already one game because the Packers have lost to the Lions. All the Lions have to do the rest of the way is just continue to be one game better than the Packers. And they're not only making it to the playoffs, but they're doing something they've never done before, which is win this division. The Lions have never won the NFC North, and they are on pace to do so far through 4 weeks of the season. I hate to say this as a Packers fan, but the Detroit Lions unequivocally and undeniably are the best cat team in the NFL today.
Undoubtedly, unequivocally, and undeniably. I'm right there with you, Dwayne. You look at the Detroit Lions. What do they not have? They have a reliable running attack. They have weapons. They have an above-average offensive line. They have defensive playmakers. They have a great coaching staff. They have guys that can motivate and uplift. They have a bargaining culture. What are they missing? An elite quarterback? But, outside of that, they have literally everything else. And we've seen Jared Goff. I know he wasn't the driving force, but he's a quarterback that started in the Super Bowl. And so we know what he's capable of. And now that he has the stage set, again, what is he missing? Now with Jameson Williams coming back, now he has a deep there to kind of stretch the field. That's going to open things up for Sam Laporta, underneath. That's going to open things up for Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's going to open things up for Jahmyr Gibbs. He's only going to be incorporated more and more into the game plan as the season progresses. David Montgomery's over here having a touchdown fest. He could have more touchdowns than Jamal Williams at 17 last year. And so, for fantasy owners out there that took him in the later rounds, my gosh, did you get blessed? So, yeah, Dwayne, I mean, I'm right there with you. I think it's disrespectful to even talk about these other cat teams and mention them in the same breath as the Detroit Lions.
And it's crazy to think that we live in a world where the Detroit Lions are the best cat team in the NFL.
Right.
Speaking of being the best team in anything, the Houston Texans are 2-2. And granted, the entire division is 2-2, but this isn't about the Houston Texans. This is about CJ Stroud, who so far through 4 weeks of the season is clearly, and this is no disrespect to Bijan Robinson, but in my opinion, they're both 2-2. So in my opinion, he's clearly the front runner for Offensive Rookie of the Year to this point of the season. What he's able to do has been historic, literally historic. He has I think the second most passing yards to start a career at this point through 4 weeks of the season. And if I'm not mistaken, he has the most yards thrown without an interception, or he's at least approaching that record. I know that Dak Prescott in 2016 set a record similar to that. I don't know if it was for passing yards, if it was for passing attempts to start his career without an interception. But again, you guys know me. I talked a lot about how Justin Herbert doesn't get the credit he deserves because he had an electrifying Offensive Rookie of the Year season, and a lot had to do with what he was able to do as it pertains to history. And CJ Stroud so far is etching his name into the history books so far through 4 weeks of the season. If you had to rate CJ Stroud's season on a 5-star scale, how many stars are you giving CJ Stroud so far?
This is gonna sound crazy, but I'm gonna have to give him 4.5 stars. And the only reason why it's that much is because I had to adjust the weight just a little bit. You know, when you kind of consider the circumstances, you look at the Houston Texans, they're just a complete and utter mess. And for them to even be at 500 through 4 weeks of the season, that in and of itself is damn near a miracle. And when you look at how he's been performing, he's been the driving force behind, you know, these wins. He's playing good, clean football. He's throwing accurate passes. His ball placement has been a revelation. You know, in Houston, he's turning these guys into playmakers. He's making the offensive line look better than what it actually is. He's doing the defense favors. I mean, what doesn't he possess? The leadership. I mean, I see a leader. I see an alpha, a future alpha. I see a future Pro Bowler. I see all pros. Like, he's been as good as advertised and then some. And so to me, it almost seems astronomical that prior to the NFL draft actually taking place, his name was getting slandered like crazy, like none other. People were talking about about the time, I guess, when he apparently flaked on Peyton Manning in the passing academy. Like, that was supposed to drag his draft stock down. People were talking about, what was it, the Wonderlic score, his Wonderlic score, whatever that score was, that was so minuscule that people were really concerned about him, whether or not he was going to fall out of the top 10. And so now when I'm looking back, I'm going back to all that. Did all those people know something that we didn't? Or did they all know what we're just now finding out? And they were trying to hide teams from unlocking or from seeing that version of a CJ Stroud. Like, that's what I'm starting to think it is. Like, there was intentionally and deliberately sabotaging him and his draft value, a la Laramie Tunsil. I know the Laramie Tunsil situation was a lot cloudier, no pun intended, prior to him getting drafted. But I think those are two similar situations, and it's ironic that they now both play for the Houston Texans. But yeah, I think I'd have to give him 4.5 stars. Again, I have to adjust the weight just a little bit considering the circumstances, but I think the future is very, very bright for CJ Stroud.
Here's what's beautiful to me about what CJ Stroud has done. Week 1, blasted by the Ravens, as expected. Week 2, they lost to the Colts, 31-20, kind of close game, but I do think that the score was a lot closer than what the game actually was. They followed up with not just a win against the Jacksonville Jaguars, not even just a win on the road against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but they got a statement win on the road against the Jaguars, a team that, as we mentioned, was expected to run away with this division, and then they followed it up at home during J.J. Watt's Ring of Honor night, or afternoon rather, because they don't play at night, with an absolute beatdown on the Pittsburgh Steelers. So much so that the Pittsburgh Steelers are thinking about making massive changes throughout the course of the ranks of the coaching staff and on the field, because that's how bad they looked this past Sunday. Here's what's beautiful about this for CJ Stroud. Number one, these next 2 games heading into the bye, they've got to go to Atlanta and they have to host New Orleans. Atlanta's another young team. That game could go either way, but if I had to make a pick right now, gun to my head, I'm taking the Texans in this game against the Falcons. And I know that's crazy to think because of what Bijan has done, but let's be honest, what C.J. Stroud has done through the air, I expect C.J. Stroud to absolutely carve up this Atlanta Falcons secondary, and then they have to host the New Orleans Saints, who Derek Carr has admitted has not been offensively what they're supposed to be. But here's the other thing too, and I know we talked about this a lot last season because of what Dameon Pierce did in respect to, what K9 Kenneth Walker did for you as a Seahawks fan. So far through 4 weeks of the season, C.J. Stroud has 242, 384, 280, and 306 passing yards, right? His leading receivers have been Nico Collins in week 1 with 80 yards receiving, Nico Collins in week 2 with 146, Tank Dell got the job done in week 3 with 145, and Nico Collins did it this past week with 168. The rushing attack, they've yet to rush for more than 100 yards in a game so far this season. Dameon Pierce has 38. Dameon Pierce has 31. Singletary had 41. Dameon Pierce had his season high so far through the season with 81 rush yards. What's so beautiful about that to me is we know what Dameon Pierce can do. We saw what he can do last season. Like, we know what he can do when he's fully unlocked, when he fully hits his stride. And what I'm saying is when you look at what C.J. Stroud has done and how lethal he's been, when you look at how lethal Nico Collins and Tank Dell has been, when you add in that Dameon Pierce factor, once he gets rolling, you have what I would say is arguably one of, if not the best young core offensively. Now, again, I'm not saying that they're better than a Joe Burrow, a Jamar Chase, and a T. Higgins at their best. No, I'm not saying that they're better than what you guys have out there in Seattle. I'm not saying they're better than the 49ers. I'm not saying they're better than the Eagles. But what I'm saying is when we're talking about youth, these are all guys. Stroud's a rookie. Dell is a rookie. Collins is a rookie. Pierce is in year 2. Like, is there a team that has that much youth at the quarterback, running back, and wide receiver positions that can be as lethal as they can be? When I look at the schedule coming out of the bye, they have the Panthers, who are struggling, as we talk about. They have the Buccaneers, who are 3-1 right now. But let's be honest, they're still the Buccaneers. Like, it's still Baker Mayfield. Like, I don't know. The Bengals should be better by week 10, but are they really going to be better by week 10? You've got the Cardinals. Like as you go on, I know no one expected this, and they can, of course, fall back down and regress to the mean and be the Texans that we all know and hate and love to laugh at. But we could be talking about a scenario where maybe this division isn't just as open and shut as we thought it would be. And maybe that the Houston Texans are not just competing for a right to get back into the swing of things as far as being competitive like how they were under Deshaun Watson. But maybe we could talk about them making the playoffs and winning a division this season, because this division, by no stretch of the imagination, so far has an impressive team. The Jaguars are struggling. The Colts are struggling. The Titans are struggling. Like, this is a 2-2 division from top to bottom. It's anybody's game. And if there's one team that I would say right now, based on what we've seen for month of the season, has my vote at least into the next month of the season about taking the edge, I feel like it has to be the Houston Texans based on what we've seen from C.J. Stroud.
And I mean, given that list of opponents that you just gave out, those are all winnable games, the Bengals and the Buccaneers included. And so you kind of look at that, and you also look at the fact that C.J. Stroud is ahead of Justin Herbert, who you talked about earlier today, and that phenomenal rookie season that he had as a passer. Ironically speaking, C.J. Stroud has more passing yards than Justin Herbert right now, who actually has been setting the NFL on fire, at least offensively. I mean, in the fantasy world, too, I have a lot of shares of Justin Herbert, and my gosh, he's been producing. But C.J. Stroud, 4th in the National Football League with 1,212 passing yards, more than Joe Burrow, just behind Tua, just behind Kirk Cousins, just behind Matthew Stafford. I mean, for him to even be in the top 5 is just absolutely and utterly insane. I mean, one of the biggest knocks on his football team was a quote-unquote lack of weapons. And so, I mean, for him to be doing this in the game, like you talked about, no run game, like, my gosh, like, how bright is the future for this guy? Imagine if they add one more weapon, give him a few more offensive linemen, a more innovative coach, if he even needs one offensively. Look, the sky's absolutely the limit. And I said this on Emmett's show. I'm on record saying this. I'll try to look for the film, for the tape if I can. But I remember being on Emmett's show a couple of months ago, and I talked about how the Houston Texans could surprise everybody and potentially win the AFC South. And so I'm going to look for that. And when I find that, I'm going to send it to you.
Hey, I would say at this point in the season, it's fair game, and I wouldn't be surprised at all. Let's jump into what we've been doing all week, or all season, rather. Let's get into some highest of highs and some lowest of lows before we do our power rankings. As always, Steezy, you start us off with your 3 highest of highs from week 3.
So do you want me to start with the highest of highs, or does it matter?
Or just however you want to do it, like the high, however you want to build. If you want to build up to it, just your 3 highest of highs for this week.
Okay, so this is a weird order, but I'm going to talk about my second highest of highs. I don't want to talk about my highest of highs just yet. And the only reason why I want to talk about it in this order is because we were just talking about CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. And so for one of my week 4 highest of highs, I got to talk about CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans as a whole. I mean, we spent a lot of time on this, so I'm not going to spend too much more time, but just to kind of absolutely blitz the Pittsburgh Steelers 32-6 in a game in which they were underdogs. I mean, that's no small feat. And so for them to kind of be in the position that they're in now, for them to even have a chance of winning the AFC South, I think that's a huge win for them at this point in the season. And CJ Stroud's play is just a bonus. And so I got to go there. Another high, Zach Wilson looks like a functional quarterback in the National Football League. I went back and I looked at some of his highest yardage totals throughout his career in the National Football League. And when I looked at what he did against the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday Night Football, he passed for, 245? If I'm looking at that correctly, 245, and that ranks 6th as far as how much he's thrown for, right? And so I looked at some of those other games in which he's thrown for more than 245. All those games, he threw interceptions. All those games, he threw either it was multiple interceptions or he had a passer rating below 60, below 70. And so a lot of those yards were accumulated via garbage time. And so I say all this to say that I think he probably had his best game of his NFL career, like through the last year and a half or 2 years. He just looked like a different quarterback out there. He looked a lot more confident. Just the velocity in his throws. He was willing to push the ball down the field. He didn't play scared. He didn't look like he was being rushed or being hurried into a lot of his decisions. And so I think just the fact that he looked functional. I know they lost the game. I know that clip went viral of him telling his teammates that, I lost the game. But for him to even, to take accountability there, I think that's another sign that he's growing up. And so not only is he growing up off the field, but he's growing up on the field. And so to me, that has got to be one of my highest of highs. Now for my final highest of highs, the highest of highs, I couldn't go on this segment without talking about my Seattle Seahawks in a positive light, because the last time I was on this show, I was bagging the Seattle Seahawks. But, I'm going to give credit and the flowers where it's due. And I know and I understand we're talking about the New York Giants, who probably is going to finish with the top three bottom record in the National Football League. But, 11 sacks, a season high this year. Guys are getting healthy at the right time. Bobby Wagner out here putting up 17 tackles and 2 sacks in his age 34 season. The offense, I know Geno Smith was injured for a little bit, but the offense was looking great. The offensive line, guys still aren't healthy. And yet they're over here pushing Leonard Williams around. They're over here pushing Dexter Lawrence around, who got paid. And so for Seattle to kind of walk away from MetLife Stadium in the manner that they did, I know Jamal Adams got injured, but he should be back after the bye if I'm reading the reports correctly. And so I think the Seahawks, like I talked about at the top of the show, it's starting to seem like they're getting back into their groove. They're getting back on track. And that week 1 was more of an aberration.
I think those are all great. As you're rattling off your highs, you got about 3 of mine, so I'm just gonna go in a different direction.
Oh,
I'm gonna pick 3 different highs. Let's mix it up. Let's not beat a dead horse. My first high, and this isn't my highest of high, it's the third one on my list, is I do want to give love and I want to shout out Puka Nacua. He scored his first NFL touchdown this past week, but also, if I'm not mistaken, he has the most yards through 4 games to start a season in the history of the NFL for a rookie. But what's also interesting, and of course this has a lot to do with Cooper Kupp's absence, of course, and reports are saying that Cooper Kupp's 21-day practice window has been opened and he can start as soon as this Sunday. But I do just want to point this out to all the stat nerds out there. When Cooper Kupp won the Triple Crown a couple years ago in 2021, Puka Nacua right now is on pace to have more yards than Cooper Kupp did that season. Now, of course, when Cooper Kupp comes back and he's healthy, Puka Nacua's progression or his productivity will probably take a slight hit because Cooper Kupp is the number one receiver. But I just did think that was impressive. And I do want to give Puka Nacua some love. And I think that Puka Nacua, it's a funny name to say. So anytime I have an excuse to say Puka Nacua, I'm going to say it. That's my first one. My second high is a high on the edited version. I don't believe in more victories. You know this. You guys watch the show, you know this. I do not believe in more victories. There are no such thing as more victories in sports at all. But I am going to give some love to Baker Mayfield, and I will give a shout out to Baker Mayfield in this one instance and break my rule, because Baker Mayfield has proven that sometimes maybe it's okay to show some love for more victories. Now, of course, they did get the job done against the Saints, holding them to just 3 points or just 3 field goals at home, I believe, actually. But what's more important is Baker Mayfield seems comfortable. When you talked about Zach Wilson, one of the things that I remember is that when we looked at Zach Wilson on Sunday, he looked comfortable. He looked okay. He played with freedom. Baker Mayfield looks comfortable. He looks okay. And he's back to playing with that freedom that he was playing with just a couple years ago in Cleveland. Remember the last time we saw Baker Mayfield comfortable playing with freedom, he took the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs. So I'm not saying that they're going to go to the playoffs, but I'm saying if Baker Mayfield continues playing this way, and if the Bucs continue this up, we could see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers playing in the playoffs. But my highest of high for this week, and this has not changed. This was my highest of high for the week. I'm glad you didn't steal it. My highest of high this week goes to Darius Bland. There's a lot of talk about the Dallas Cowboys all the time. There's a lot of ups and downs and this and that, hate, love about the Dallas Cowboys, rightfully so, because they're arguably the most polarizing team in the country, if not on the face of the planet, when it comes to the world of sports. But Darius Bland stepped up major. And look, I get it. It was against the lowly New England Patriots, and this is not the last you're going to hear me talk about the New England Patriots tonight on this show. In fact, they're going to be talked about in just a second on the next segment. But Darius Bland showed up, and he stepped up, and he played phenomenal football this season. If it wasn't for Devon Witherspoon this past Monday night on football, and on Monday Night Football, I would argue that Darius Bland had probably the best defensive performance we saw all week. But then here comes Mr. Witherspoon with probably the greatest rookie cornerback performance we've seen in the last 5-10 years against the lowly New York Giants, but nonetheless a great performance either way. So those are my 3 highs of highs. But as we all know, people, just as much as there are highest of highs, there of course has to be lowest of lows. So Steezy, give me your 3 lowest of lows from week 4 before we get into our power rankings.
Man, so a lot of my highest of highs and lowest of lows kind of go hand in hand. And so again, I'm not going to spend too much time here. It's probably going to be a little predictable as to what I'm going to say. But I got to start off with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, you said this sometime at the top of the show. That loss to the Houston Texans got them thinking about changing some things, as far as who the offensive coordinator is going to be, who's going to be doing this. Just everybody on the coaching staff, and nobody's safe except for Mike Tomlin. And so I think with them just getting embarrassed on the road, I mean, it's rare to see a Mike Tomlin coach team. I know in week 1, they got absolutely bludgeoned by the San Francisco 49ers. That's arguably the best team in football. And so it's no shame in getting blown out by the best team in football. But when you're getting blown out by a team that was expected to be one of the bottom 5 teams in the National Football League, coming off a victory, and you're one of the best coaches in the league, and you're supposed to be better than that team that you're going up against, I'm going to have some question marks, and I'm going to be raising some eyebrows. And so I told you the first show that we did about a couple of weeks ago, I wasn't a believer in Kenny Pickett then. I still am not. And I don't know if him playing this week is even the best idea. Like, yeah, okay, if he's healthy, he should play, but I don't think he's going to be 100%. And then going up against the Baltimore Ravens defense, these games are always dogfights. And so it's going to be a low-scoring slugfest anyway. I don't know if he's going to want any part of that. I think there's just a higher likelihood for injury. Pittsburgh Steelers, that's one of my lowest of lows. And then another team that we talked about earlier, the New York freaking Giants. I mean, my gosh, to just look that awful. This team has played more primetime games than they have wins on the season. Like, they're already at 3 primetime games, and they have 1 win. Like, the math is not adding up. I don't know if they have any more primetime games, but the New York Giants and not the New York Jets, after that Aaron Rodgers injury, is looking like the joke of New York. I understand they're getting Saquon Barkley back. They should be getting Andrew Thomas back. But again, like I said, for the Bengals, things are only going to get worse before they start getting better for the New York Giants. And for them to falter in that manner was just utterly and disgustingly embarrassing. I expected better. Brian Daboll, I mean, what happens to the coach of the year? This is still very much the same team. That team has remained, for the most part, intact with some additions on both sides of the ball. And so, man, I hate to say this, but maybe come the end of the year, he could already be on the hot seat. We'll see. I don't know. But for my final lowest of lows, man, again, we spent so much time on this team already. But the Cincinnati Bengals, Look, they have injuries all around. It's just things are starting to look like it's just an absolute clutter, just a mess over there. And given their schedule, nothing's going to be easy. Just nothing. Like the Cardinals again, that's a trap game. There's a matchup against the Seahawks next week. That's not going to be easy. And so I don't know. They could have a top 5 pick in next year's draft, by the way the things are looking. And so maybe things are kind of playing out in their favor come the bigger picture. And what I mean by that is T. Higgins goes, he gets paid by another team. Cincinnati has a bad year. They draft in the top 5 or maybe the top 10. And because this upcoming draft class is so loaded at wide receiver, because it's so loaded offensively, maybe they get another premier talent and they bounce back. But right now, I mean, it's for what's going on this season, it's starting to spiral out of control. And so the Bengals, the Steelers, and the Giants, y'all better start picking it up, man.
All right. So these are my lowest of lows. And I want to be crystal clear. I've never done this before. We're 4 weeks into the season, and what I'm about to say, I've never said before, and I've definitely never said it this early. I was not shy about my Joe Burrow for MVP campaign. I was not shy about my pick to make it for the Super Bowl. I had Bengals Cowboys in the Super Bowl. I have to. I wouldn't be the podcaster I am. I wouldn't be the host I am. I wouldn't be the man that I am if I didn't come on this show tonight after week 4, stand on my 10 toes and firmly say that I deserve to be on the lowest of lows this week, because there's no more Bengals to the Super Bowl, bro. There's no more Joe Burrow for MVP. This is it. Maybe they win this week against the Titans. Maybe there's a little bit of hope, but that's it. I have no bullets left in the chamber. I've run out of excuses. I've run out of what ifs. I've run out of well maybes. I run out of just waits. Like I've run out of all those, and I have to sit here. I have to own this, and so I'm gonna own it. I was wrong. I was wrong about the Cincinnati Bengals this season, but I want to be perfectly clear though. I wasn't wrong about the Cincinnati Bengals because they suck, because they do suck. I was wrong about the Cincinnati Bengals because the reason why they suck is because they made a sucky decision. They made a bungles decision. We watched the Cincinnati Bengals a couple years ago make it, of course, all the way to the Super Bowl, coming off of an injury season from his rookie season by Joe Burrow. A season I thought Joe Burrow would have run Offensive Rookie of the Year if he stayed healthy. So I'm as much as I want to sit here and I want to tell you that I'm all in on the Bengals making it to the Super Bowl this year, I can't do that. So I deserve to be on the lowest of lows for this week. But maybe I shouldn't do this, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm starting to notice a pattern. Okay, I'm starting to see a sense of some pattern. I'm a math teacher, so I'm very good with pattern recognition. Okay.
Oh.
Joe Burrow's rookie season, he's hurt, goes down with the ACL. They come back the next season, they win the Super Bowl, or they go to the Super Bowl. The season after that, they make it to the AFC Championship game. Let's call this an injury year for Joe Burrow. Let's say there's no comeback from this. I'm going to go on record right now. I'm going to say officially that at some point this season, before season's end, because things aren't going to turn around, the Bengals are going to shut down Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow's going to have time to heal that calf, and he's going to have time to get into the lab, and he's going to work it out. And maybe this means I deserve to be on the lowest of lows come this time next year as well. But I don't care. I am staking my claim right here, right now, today, that coming off of this super low season for the Cincinnati Bengals, they're going to be back next year. Okay, they're going to be better than ever. Okay, I'm going to go back to coming on this show and every show that I go on, talking and singing the praises of Joseph Lee Burrow, because I believe that if not this season, the next season, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be. The Bengals are not done with the Super Bowl. They're going to be back. They're going to be back. And so maybe it's not this year. Maybe it's next year. But that is my personal. I have to put myself on lowest of lows this week. But now let's get into the good stuff. That was just an honorable mention. Number one, I'm not going to dive too much into it because you talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm utterly disappointed. Mike Tomlin always has some magic, and he always finds a way to make a way out of no way when it comes to these seasons that seem to be, dead to rights. And the next thing you know, you look up and they're 8-8 or 8-1 or 9-8. Excuse me, whatever it is. They're in the playoffs. Quite as kept, they are technically second place in the division right now, so maybe there's some hope. But that's it. The slightly lower than the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's my Green Bay Packers. And I have to say this again. I gotta cut no cut cards. We're a month into the season, so we know who's who and who's not. And I want to be crystal clear. And I've never done this before. I don't think I've ever called for. I don't think I've ever done this before. But Matt LaFleur's got to go. We cannot consistently, as a fan, I cannot consistently let Matt LaFleur get away with the things that he got away with on Thursday night. Steezy, I'm sure you did, but I don't know if you remember. Do you happen to know Aaron Jones' stat line from this past Thursday?
Yeah, it was he had what was it 20 yards rushing? Or was it 12 yards rushing?
No. Aaron Jones against a division rival on primetime at home had 5 carries for 18 yards. And look, we're 2-2, and I've had friends say, "Oh, well, he played well against Chicago." No, he didn't. No, he didn't play well against Chicago. We actually we beat on Chicago, and he only had 9 carries for 41 yards. There's no other coach in any other sport on the face of the planet that can get away with not letting the best player on the team touch the ball. Why, through 2 games, does Aaron Jones have 14 carries for 59 yards? Why? When you know we have a young quarterback in Jordan Love, when you know that Christian Watson's been hurt, when you know that Romeo Doubs is he's getting there, when you know that the offensive line is messed up, why are we allowing Jordan Love to sit in the pocket and just take hit after hit after hit? Now, granted, he has gone to the Aaron Rodgers school of quick release. Don't get me wrong. His release is quite quicker than what it was this time last season. But the fact still remains, I cannot continue to sit here and allow Matt LaFleur to just get away with this. And so I'm going to hold Matt LaFleur accountable if no one else will. Matt LaFleur has to go. There are some coaches in the NFL that prove time and time again that they're nothing more than good coordinators. Matt LaFleur falls in that bucket. And I think what the media has forgotten, what the world of what the NFL community has forgotten, is that those 3 seasons, when we went 13-3 in 3 consecutive seasons, and I think it was 13-4 the following season, when we won the most games in a 3-year span without making it to a Super Bowl, that was not because of Matt LaFleur. That was because of Aaron Rodgers. That was because of the greatness of Aaron Rodgers during that time in the regular season, of course, not the postseason, but that was because of Aaron Rodgers. So I am going to put Matt LaFleur and the Green Bay Packers on my lowest of lows because Matt LaFleur needs to go. There is no excuse for what I've seen so far through the 2 games that Aaron Jones has played, which brings me to the absolute lowest of low. And we're sticking with coaching. And Steezy, you might know where this is going because we worked enough together where maybe you might know where this is going. Maybe you don't. There is one man in football that no one thinks can be fired. There's one man in football that everyone thinks is just completely untouchable. And no, I'm not talking about Mike Tomlin. I'm not talking about Nick Sirianni. I'm not talking about any other longer tenured coach. I'm not talking about Andy Reid, although Mike Tomlin and Andy Reid are also untouchable. Bill Belichick got to go, bro. I don't understand what I'm watching from the New England Patriots. Mac Jones is dog doo-doo. He's actually dog doo-doo. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Shark Tale. If you haven't, great movie. You should watch it. There's a scene in Shark Tale where Oscar goes into Mr. Sykes' office, and Mr. Sykes has this Rolodex, or this poster rather, and he's telling Oscar like where he ranks like in the ocean, and he goes through all this this big list. And Oscar's at the very bottom of the list, and he's so far below that he's actually under whale poo. Actually, that's what the New England Patriots are at this point because of Bill Belichick. Because the offense sucks, defense not good, Mac Jones trash, running game don't exist, receivers where? I don't understand what's happening. And so not only is the coaching not good, but can we also acknowledge the fact that Bill Belichick has never had a good draft class? Can we also acknowledge the fact finally after now that he's been retired for a couple games and now that we've seen him out of New England for at least 2 and a quarter seasons, that it was never Bill Belichick that was the reason why the New England Patriots were winning all these Super Bowls and winning all these games? It was because of the great Tom Brady. Can we acknowledge the fact that that is what it was? Because it wasn't Bill. It wasn't Bill, and it wasn't Robert Kraft. Bill Belichick has to go. He's old. He's old. It's time. It is time. There is a retirement age in the real world. There is a retirement age in the church. There needs to be a retirement age in the NFL. And Bill Belichick, I'm I'm sure Bill Belichick has surpassed whatever the necessary retirement age should be for coaching in the NFL because he sucks. Like, he doesn't even have that loophole that he used to have a couple years ago because they went in there and they fixed that up in the rules like he used to do this thing like they would get like they would do like the intentional delay game and the intentional false start and he would always laugh about it. No, like, that's done. Bill Belichick's garbage. The Patriots, garbage. They suck. Matt Jones sucks. Run game sucks. You thought bringing in Ezekiel Elliott was a good deal? Wasn't. It's bad. And to top it all off, you let J.C. Jackson walk out your front door this season. And just yesterday, or maybe it was earlier today, you gave things up to bring him back. If that's the case, why'd you let him walk out the front door in the first place? You know whose decision that was? The GM. You know who the GM is? It's Bill Belichick. So will Belichick be fired? No. Should Bill Belichick be fired? Or at least made to retire after the season? Absolutely. Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots are the lowest of low for me this week.
Hey, Dwayne, I mean, that was all facts. I don't have nothing to debate about what you just said, but I do have one thing I want to talk about because if there was a threshold for age, it wouldn't just be Bill Belichick. It'd be my good friend here in Seattle, Coach Carroll too. Look, okay, there can be times in which, he's had moments in which people start to question whether or not he's senile. And I say that in the most respectful way that I can. I'm just a messenger here. But from what I know, Pete Carroll is the oldest coach in the National Football League, older than Bill Belichick. But I think just
but the Seahawks don't suck though. Like that's the difference.
No, they don't.
Seahawks don't suck.
They don't. But you were talking about like an age threshold, and so if Bill Belichick has met that age threshold, Pete Carroll certainly has because Pete's older than him. Then of course, just by default, he's going to pass that threshold. And so I just wanted to say that if the NFL does end up implementing, I know as unlikely as it sounds, if they end up implementing like an age threshold, let's just say that there can be exceptions to the rule because right now we're seeing one in Pete Carroll.
I would say that Pete Carroll deserves to keep his job if there's a
1,000%.
And I don't want to get political because I don't watch news. I don't like politics. There's an age minimum for some of these offices that we vote for every 2, 4, 6 years. Can we get an age maximum? Like, why are we really about to vote for an 80-year-old and an 82-year-old president next year? Can we not? I just wanted to point that out. I got Mitch McConnell freezing on national TV. You want to talk about old and senile? Yeah, you look up old and senile in a definition in dictionary, you get a picture of Mitch McConnell. Anyway, let's talk power rankings. So, usually when we do power rankings, we do top 5 because that's stereotypical. But I'm going to steal a page out of our brother show, Stuff About Sports. We are going to do top 5, bottom 3. So let's do bottom 3 first, and then we'll do top 5 second. So give me your bottom 3 teams in the NFL after week 4.
Oh, okay. So I had that wrong because I just listed my top 5 teams, but I do like this twist. It does make me want to think a little bit more just because, when it comes to putting together a top 5 in the NFL, that's super easy. I mean, I don't think there's really too much of a debate there. But man, okay, let's go with I have to go with there's 2 winless teams right now, so they're gonna have to kind of lead this charge. 32nd ranked team in the National Football League right now, to me and probably to many others, is none other than the Carolina Panthers. I mean, my gosh, what better way to what better first year than the one that Bryce Young is having right now, right? A rookie year in which they didn't give him any receivers, a rookie year in which damn near his entire defense has been struck by injury, a first year in which some people are starting to look at Frank Reich and whether or not he's actually a legitimate coach in this league or whether or not he falls under that category that you brought up earlier, just a good coordinator and nothing more and nothing worse. And so there's just a lot going on in Carolina. Like I talked about, I don't see them getting a win in week 5. I don't see them getting a win next week. I don't know when they're going to get a win. I don't know. Maybe they're the team to trade for a T. Higgins. Maybe Cincinnati decides to just blow it up and shut down a Joe Burrow, and you decide to just give up on the T. Higgins experiment because you're not going to pay him $100+ million after the season. Maybe you trade him to a team like the Carolina Panthers, who are hungry and are reportedly looking to attract or bring in a wide receiver 1. And so definitely a lot of interesting things to kind of be on the lookout for. But the Carolina Panthers right now are the 32nd best team in the National Football League. Right next to them at 31st in great company is the Chicago Bears. I mean, again, the only winless team, or these are the only two winless teams in the National Football League, and it's just kind of hard to rank them higher than that when you've yet to compile a win, and every other team in the NFL does. And so when you look at the Chicago Bears, I mean, the offensive line, one of the worst in football, no ground attack whatsoever. You got Justin Fields and the coaching staff not on the same page. Receivers not named DJ Moore just aren't showing up. The defense, one of the worst, if not the worst in football. I mean, there's nowhere to go but up. I mean, hopefully in these power rankings they move up, but to me, they're 31st. And then at 30, man, I'm probably going to have to go doing this on a whim here. Probably have to go with the Denver Broncos. Defensively, they've just been an atrocity. Everything seems to be going on except for Russell Wilson. And I got to give credit where credit is due. Russell Wilson, he hasn't been the reason why this team is as awful as they are. I mean, defensively, like I said, they're just an absolute mess. The running attack just hasn't really been there. Russ has been doing a good job to take care of the football and moving the ball down the field, but he just doesn't seem to have any sort of help. And that first and second round pick that the Broncos traded to acquire a head coach, it's not looking good right now. But for my three bottom teams, I'm going to have to go with the Carolina Panthers, the Chicago Bears, and the Denver Broncos.
My bottom three are about the same as yours, with two slight tweaks. I think the Bears are the worst team in football for no reason other than that's my Packers bias, and I can put them at the bottom just because I can. The Panthers be right above them at 31 instead of the Broncos, because I am going to give the Broncos, oddly enough, I'm going to cut them a little bit of slack. They're still like bottom five, but I will cut them a little bit of slack, and I will say that they're not one of the three worst teams in football because they have had some they've had some weird luck this season. I'll just put it that way and kind of leave it at that. But for me, the third worst team in the league is the other team that should be 0-4. It's the New York Football Giants. They suck. Like, they are bad. Like, there is no redeeming qualities about this team at all. There's no silver lining. There's no rainbow. There's no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. There's none of that. Why should they be 0-4? Dude, they were down 20 plus to the Cardinals. It took a Herculean effort from them to beat the Cardinals. And so while I love to pile on the Denver Broncos and make sure that the world knows how bad the Broncos are, as you know, I do this. It's easy to me. I do this, but I have to cut the Broncos a bit of slack and put the Giants in my bottom three because, dude, they should also be 0-4. There should be 3 0-4 football teams. And the only reason why the New York Football Giants are not 0-3 is because of the incompetency that is the Arizona Cardinals. That's the only reason why they have a win this season. And so for me, my bottom three at 32 is the Bears, at 31 are the Panthers, and at 30 are the New York Football Giants. That is our bottom three. Steezy, give me now your top 5 teams in the NFL.
So I'm going to start with number 1 just because I feel like there's less intrigue at number 1 through maybe 3. But it's the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, we've been talking about them all show, just like the rest of the NFL media has. I mean, as long as this team is healthy, and we've been saying this for the last 3-4 years, as long as this team is healthy, if this team is healthy, they should be in the Super Bowl. They should win the Super Bowl. And when I look at the squad that they have now, I mean, they've scored 30 plus in every game. There's a serious case to be made for Christian McCaffrey as the NFL's MVP right now. At the way that things stand, defensively, they've still been that immovable force that they have been. They have yet to allow more than 23 points in any game. And then the one game that they did allow 23, that was the arch rival and arch nemesis Los Angeles Rams. And anything can happen in a divisional game. So you kind of take that out of the picture. They haven't allowed any team to put up even 20 points on them. And so when you're scoring at the rate that they are and also holding opposing teams at the rate that they are, I mean, there's just no stopping them. The only team that can't stop them is themselves. And contrary to what I said about the Carolina Panthers earlier, this team is going to win in week 5 against the Arizona Cardinals. They're going to win whoever they're playing next week. Or no, I'm tripping. They're playing the Cowboys. My bad. I'm looking at the wrong schedule. They're going to win, though, against the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to win next week and the week after that. I don't know when this team is going to lose. And so for that, I got to put the San Francisco 49ers at number 1. At number 2, I'm going with the other undefeated team, or the only other undefeated team in the Philadelphia Eagles. You spoke on this just briefly. The Eagles haven't been the best version of themselves. Like defensively, it's easy to tell that they've taken a step back. They're a little bit more vulnerable, especially on the back end. Now they're a little better at stopping the run. They're not getting to the quarterback like they were last year. The offense now starting to get back into his groove, but they did struggle in the first couple of weeks of the season, at least particularly week 1 against the New England Patriots. But once they get things together, I mean, they're going to be a threat if they aren't already. So I got the Philadelphia Eagles at number 2. At number 3, I have the Buffalo Bills. They've won 3 in a row since that week 1 debacle against the New York Jets. I know you're kind of looking at me funny because we were just trashing the Bills and Josh Allen after that first show, but they beat the team that's number 4 in my rankings. And so I was just like, I got to put them in the top 3. I mean, look, when it comes to the regular season, they know what to do. They win in the regular season. They typically dominate the regular season, and that's with injuries galore. Von Miller still hasn't been there. And they're just not healthy either. And so I got to give them credit, at least at this point in the season. They've been able to kind of right the ship since week 1. And these are fluid. I'm not married to my statements. You know that. And so you could probably change my mind, but for now, I got to put the Buffalo Bills at number 3. This is a regular season power ranking, not a postseason. And so at number 4, like I talked about, the team that they just smacked. I mean, plain and simple, 48-20. They did what they did to the Miami Dolphins, what the Miami Dolphins have been doing to the rest of the National Football League. And so they kind of put them, and what they've been doing, they kind of put that fire out. And I think to me, that they deserve a lot of credit. And for them to put up almost a 50 ball, Josh Allen, he's been taking care of the football since week 1, and that was one of our biggest concerns. And so, 3 and 4 interchangeable, though, however you want to put that. And then at number 5, this probably isn't going to last, but I got the Dallas Cowboys at number 5. Once the season continues to, I guess, once we get deeper into the season, like I said, they're probably going to lose that ranking in my top 5. But look, they're sitting at 3-1. That game against the Cardinals was probably a trap game. They were probably thinking just ahead and ended up losing. I mean, every now and then, every team in the league is going to lose a game in which they have no business losing. And so I'm not going to hold that too much against them. I'm going to hold it somewhat against them. And they still feel the dominant defense. I know they don't have a Trevon Diggs anymore. They don't have the capabilities of being the number 1 defense in the NFL anymore, but they still are very much a top 5 defense. And so, again, top 5 teams in the league. Not too much intrigue here, but number 1, got the San Francisco 49ers. Number 2, the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 3, the Buffalo Bills. Number 4, the Miami Dolphins. And last but certainly not least, at number 5, I got the Dallas Cowgirls.
Interesting. Okay. For me, the number 1 team in the NFL is the San Francisco 49ers. I am lockstep with you on that one. And you're saying might. I'm saying he is. If the season ends today, Christian McCaffrey is the MVP of the league. I think he's earned it. And I think if he continues this, he'll be the first running back since Adrian Peterson in 2012 to win the award. Won't be the dead horse. Number 1 for me are the San Francisco 49ers. I do not believe that record equates to ranking. And because of that, for me, the Miami Dolphins are the second best team in the league to me. They lost the first game of the season. Last week was to another top 5 team in the league. Not top 3, but they are top 5. We'll talk about that in just a second. The Miami Dolphins, to me, the number 1 offense in football as far as passing is concerned. Didn't look like that, of course, this past week against the Bills, but when they're clicking and Jalen Waddle, his first game back, awfully healthy, hopefully he'll get another week under his belt and he'll go back to being what he was, not just for the Dolphins, but for me, because he's on my fantasy team. The Dolphins, to me, are the second best team in football. I would say right after them, then go the Philadelphia Eagles. And I get it. The Eagles are 4-0, and you're like, how can a 4-0 team be after a 3-1 team? Well, let's think about it. This is really simple arithmetic, and I'm a math teacher, so allow me to teach you something. The Philadelphia Eagles should not be 4-0. The Philadelphia Eagles should be 2-2. The Philadelphia Eagles benefited from a lack of from incompetency from 2 football teams that are known for being incompetent. The Minnesota Vikings in week 2 at home, and the Washington Commanders this past Sunday on again at home. Like, we are talking about 2 teams who have had troubles finishing games over the past 2 weeks past 2-3 years of the season. The Minnesota Vikings have struggled to finish games this year. That's why they're 1-3. The Commanders, despite being what I believe is 2-2, they have also had some trouble finishing games this season. If the Vikings and the Commanders finish those games, the Eagles are 2-2, not 4-0. And so to me, I think that holds a lot of weight. Coming in at number 4, it's the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys are the 5th best team or the 4th best team in football to me. And I know what people are saying, dude, they lost to the Cardinals in week 3. Listen, let's be crystal clear about something. The Cowboys lost to the Cardinals. Yes. They did not lose to the Cardinals because of anything that didn't already exist. They lost to the Cardinals because they couldn't score in the red zone. Wouldn't you know that the Cowboys consistently this season through 4 weeks have had one of the worst red zone offenses in football? Wouldn't you know that their efficiency ranking is in the bottom half of the league? Their conversion rate in the red zone is in the bottom half of the league. They have not been a good red zone offense. A lot of that does have to do with the fact that there has been a lot of turnover in that coaching staff. A lot of it has to do with the fact that Mike McCarthy is still trying to figure out a way to mesh his offense and what he wants with what the new offensive coordinator wants and what they desire. They're trying to create this offense on the fly, but all things considered, the Cardinals didn't do anything special to stop the Cowboys. The Cowboys, unfortunately, defensively just were not as dominant as they needed to be and that they have been in the other 3 games of this season. That, to me, is enough to keep them in the top 5. The 5th best team in football, and this is a tough one for me. I got to be honest. There's a lot of different teams that can go in this spot. You can obviously put the Ravens in this spot. You could put the Bills in this spot. You could put the Chiefs in this spot. You could put the Lions in this spot, I would argue. If there is a team, you could put the Seahawks in this spot even. But
yeah, I was going to say.
The team that rounds out my top 5. And this one's tough. It can go either way, but I'm going to put my biases to the side for just a second, and I'm going to give the nod against my better judgment to the Buffalo Bills. And I want to be crystal clear. The Buffalo Bills are only, and I repeat, are only in my top 5 because they beat the Dolphins. And I cannot have the Dolphins as the 2nd best team in football and then not let that be beneficial for the Bills. But let me be crystal clear. Okay. Let me be crystal clear about something right quick. The Seahawks are 3-1. The one game that they lost was not because of Geno Smith. The Lions are 3-1. The one game that they lost was not because of Jared Goff. The Chiefs are 3-1. The one game that they lost, it wasn't because of Patrick Mahomes, I would say. And the Ravens are 3-1, and the one game that they lost was not because of Lamar Jackson, and I'll throw Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers in there as well. The Buffalo Bills are 3-1 because, as we talked about 3 weeks ago, Josh Allen decided to be generous. And hey, look, Josh Allen was raised right. He's got great parents. His mama loves him. His daddy loves him, and they raised him right. He's got manners, and he knows that when you go to someone else's house, you treat them with respect. And Josh Allen did that because Josh Allen gifted on a silver platter, $250,000 to Jordan Whitehead. And for that reason, for that kindness, that Bills Mafia kindness, Josh Allen's kindness in week 1 should keep them out of the top 5. But he was raised right. I was raised right. And I show respect because chivalry is not dead. And Josh Allen proved in week 1 that chivalry is not dead by donating $250,000 to Jordan Whitehead and what I believe is a beautiful family. I think Jordan Whitehead has a wife and kids, I think. But even if he doesn't, he's got a mama and an auntie and a papa. And they always on the come up after that $250,000 donation from Josh Allen. And so I will give the Bills their credit. I will put them in the top 5. But I do want to make something crystal clear as well. They've beaten one good team. One. They've beaten a good team. You do not get brownie points for beating on the Washington Commanders. You don't. You do not get brownie points for beating on the Las Vegas Raiders. You don't. You do not get brownie points for playing the way they were supposed to play after the aberration, the abomination, and the blasphemy that you played and you displayed week 1 in MetLife, in New Jersey, in East Rutherford against New York Jets. And so that is my top 5. Niners at 1, Dolphins at 2, Birds at 3, Cowboys at 4, Bills at 5. Any final words, Mr. Steezy A. Smith, before we get out of here?
Man, I just want to. This is off topic, but because I hit the dual stream button, I'm also streaming this to my audience on YouTube and Twitter for everybody out there that's still tuned in. And if you're tuned in on Marcus's channel on the Give Us a Shot Network, I just want to say thank you so much. I didn't really get to interact with a bunch of y'all. Normally, when I do host a live stream, I try to read every comment. I try to acknowledge everybody that's present. But because this is just a dual stream and it's not my stream or my show, I just wanted to just take a moment to acknowledge everybody that's in there. I saw Syjan in there. I saw Isaac in there. I saw Robert Stevens in there. If I'm forgetting, I know I'm forgetting a few more, you guys. I apologize, but I did just want to recognize you guys, and I just want to say thank you so much for being patient with me and for still sticking around. I know it's been a while since I've really hosted, my own live stream, and I will get back into that before the end of this year. I promise. So just stick around for that, y'all. Keep being patient, and I love you guys.
It's always a pleasure to have Steezy on the show. Steezy will be back eventually, probably at some point next month. Might get the first slot of next month again, just like you had the first month slot of September and the first slot this month. Who knows how things go? We'll see. But it's always a pleasure to have Steezy on the show. Could you please let everyone know, Steezy, where they can find you and all your content?
Yeah. First, look for Give Us a Shot Network, all social media platforms. Be sure to hit that subscribe on YouTube. It's a huge network. It's a network that Marcus is now a part of. I know a lot of guys over there that put out a bunch of great work, a bunch of great content, and so be sure to hit that like and subscribe, support them. And once you do that, then you can find Marcus at Go Talk Podcast with Marcus on all social media platforms. And once you guys go ahead and do that, you can find me as Steezy A. Smith. Same spelling as the handle right here, SteezyASmith. I don't just talk Seahawks. I don't just talk NFL. I also talk fantasy. And for all my fantasy work, you can find that at Sportstopia HQ and for the website at sportstopia.io.
It's always a pleasure to have Steezy on the show once again. Thank you guys for watching. Please please subscribe. In case you missed it, you can watch this back on YouTube. You can listen to it on Spotify and anywhere else you get your Spotify's for your listening pleasure. And in case you did not tune into Protect Our Queens last night, the Protect Our Queens podcast presented by the Give Us a Shot Network, we had the illustrious Michaela Blakes on the show. We talked all things from basketball to Grey's Anatomy and everything in between. So please check that out as well. If I'm not mistaken, the individual link is available. In case you don't want to watch the full show, the actual interview is available for you to watch. But if you want to tune into the full show, Martin and I did talk about and do a slight preview of the WNBA finals between my Las Vegas Aces and the New York Liberty. So please make sure you guys tune in for that. It is still to be decided, but it would appear that this Saturday, given that it is Fastlane, WWE Premium Live Event Fastlane, I will be right back here live on the Give Us a Shot Network, talking all things WWE Fastlane, talking a little bit about Edge going to AEW, talking a little bit about what's happening next week on NXT, and so much more. So please, we'll be right back here. Time to be determined, but on the Give Us a Shot Network. Like, subscribe, comment, share, post, reply, laugh, hate. I don't care. Just interact. We want to get more of you guys interacting and involved because we love each and every one of you. So for my guy, Steezy A. Smith, this is Go Talk. This is Marcus of Go Talk or Marcus. Excuse me, signing off. Thank you guys for watching. And as always, you guys enjoy the rest of your night. Live.